No, he comes in, but
Rachel was never gonna be here.
But we still got.
We have a secret Wi-Fi.
yes.
I have it.
We totally got told.
It's only
Yeah,
the
we-
official.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That.
Yeah. What was that? Yeah, let me just set this up. Yeah, it's the meeting started.
We're gonna need it back again because I didn't get in yet.
You're gonna come sit next to me. No, everybody's on.
Everybody can.
Oh, good,
I'll
you
take
can.
all the help I can get. Just had to do steps.
It's up to you.
Oh, yes.
Don't like the only difference.
Whatever it is, I have.
So want to look at it. Oh,
Okay, there's the. No, see? That's how many times.
Verify the server identity.
Okay, pull that out.
Can't.
I have my driver's license.
Yeah, watch.
There might be a proposal. Yeah, it'd be like right this.
I'll keep my fingers. Stephanie.
He knows on who's what's it.
Mahina and Robin are on.
Hey, Robin.
Yes.
Give me this with us.
That's the one, there's that top.
There's Mahina. Okay, hi Mahina. Oh, you weren't able to come in person today?
Browser.
You're on mute.
Oh, because I was in a
And then you
shower.
can-
Marina. Both Robin and Mahima are there. I don't know if they're evidently on purpose.
Robin was off earlier. Okay, are we all set to go, Les?
Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. It's 1:08 PM on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. We do have quorum, so let's go ahead and start with introductions. Roy, let's start with you and then we'll. Let me introduce.
He wants to.
Excellent.
Everybody wants.
The Island representative. Terry. Remember?
Some of them, Big Island.
Maybe Sheriff White Island.
Onondaga Chair, Steph and our co-member.
Makala Kalmawana Kauai.
Okay, and let's go to Robin.
Hi, Robin Kay. I'm in a room all by myself on the island of Lanai.
Thanks, Robin. Mahina.
Hi, everyone. Mahina Tudor, council member on Oahu. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today. Here all by myself.
Thank you.
let's segundo staff.
And Allison. Oh, Allison Conto, Deputy Attorney General. All right, thank you, everybody. And for the record, there are no members of the public present. So thank you guys, everybody, for coming in. I know there's today with the travel and weather schedule. Oh, Dawn's here. Dawn, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Dawn Hager. I'm in a room with 20 people and I'm from Maui.
All right, thanks, Dawn.
Always exaggerate.
And I just think.
So first of our agenda, we have review and adoption of meeting minutes. Thank you very much, Les, for working on meeting minutes. So these are our two most recent. Let's take a few minutes to go over it, maybe just 5 minutes until 1:15. And then if we need more time, we can go. Yeah, you ready? Okay, or do you folks need more time to go over them? I think it's fine, we have time for the agenda. Okay. Yeah, okay, we'll take till 1:15.
Is there?
It's gone, it's gone.
Very good minutes. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Password.
Oh, just the house.
Yeah.
Hire a really high paid attorney.
If only I can make it work.
There's only one program in here, so that's about. That is blocking it. So now it's the thing that's happening.
Yeah, I guess this is not secure, so.
It doesn't like you. I have the agenda. On my stack. Thank you. Gonna go to my phone.
Yeah, it hasn't seen it.
Yes, so did it.
Well, it hasn't seen treatment since. There's some reason
It's continuously asking, blocking, asking.
Maybe about 1 more minute to review meeting minutes. Discuss.
Oh, sorry.
You want me to email it to you?
No, I have, oh, she has.
Now, I see one typo. Do you want to hear that now?
Yeah, let's go, or well, maybe I'll take a motion first and then we can.
I move to approve the minutes of Tuesday, January 10th.
do. All right, seconds. You.
Who's seconded?
Thank you. All right, any discussion on the January 10th meeting minutes? Robin, go ahead.
Yeah, if you go to page 4, third paragraph, I think the first sentence in that paragraph should be that the current state administration rather than SAY's administration.
Touch. Thanks for that. Yes. January 10th. Let's see a few more minutes to look at that. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. Are you okay with the amendment
Yes.
as amended? And Mike, you as well?
Yes.
All right. The motion is to approve the January 10th meeting minutes as amended. All those in favor? Say aye. All right, it is unanimous with the folks present, so I won't do a roll call on that. Now, moving on to the February 7th meeting minutes of motion.
Move to approve.
Thanks, Ron. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Mary.
Third.
All right, any discussion of the February 7th meeting?
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the February 7, 2020 meeting minutes, please raise your hands. Aye. It is or unanimous. Unanimous it passes. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you everybody for reviewing the meeting minutes, and Les, again, thank you for doing these. These were very detailed and thorough, so they're fantastic. On that note, I wanted to let you folks know that we hired a student helper from HBO. Her name is Kaylee. She'll be starting in a couple of weeks, and she's been hired specifically to help the council catch up with our past due minutes. So, yeah, she'll be assisting with that. So we'll have a lot more.
Did she assist with these?
I don't know, not yet, because she hasn't started yet.
Okay.
But yeah, that'll be it. Yeah, do you want to do announcements now?
Okay. Yeah, hi, everybody. I just want to report sadly that I'm going to be retiring on May 1st. Okay, what they'll do is they'll probably end up searching for another person to replace me, and
Not possible.
well, they have other environmental health specialists throughout not in DBED, but
Throughout the system.
throughout the system. So they're gonna probably do that, and I'll be working with Jen in the transition because she's gonna basically be doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of preparing the agendas and the meeting minutes and stuff. So yeah, so I'm going to be 70 in April, so it's no more.
It's your time.
Yeah, already. Yeah, Social Security is maxed out, so I decided to just, enjoy life. So anyhow, I just want to say thank you for many years of service, and I enjoyed working with you very much, and this isn't farewell. I'll be around.
Thank you. Thank you. I do suggest folks, I mean, Les and I were kind of talking just casually. Les obviously has, all institutional knowledge, upstairs. So we're thinking maybe of doing some like subject matter video interviews with him or something, but to the extent, unless if I misinterpreted our conversation.
No.
I think he's open to individuals calling him and talking story, just to get history and whatnot. If there's questions you folks know, you probably want to ask Les before he retires. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, call me, email me.
Les, how long have you been at OEQC ERP?
Since 1991.
Yeah, because I started my business in '92.
Yeah.
Doing this, and I remember you from the very beginning.
Yeah, I used to be with the hazardous waste program. Yeah, and I transferred to OETC in '91.
But you've been an incredible amount of knowledge for me. I don't know how many of you guys have done it. Maybe I don't think I'm the only one, but whenever I had a big question about how the law was conducted and past EAs and all kinds of stuff, legal questions. I went to Les, and he was always willing to help. Always went out and did research if he needed to answer the question. And I just think you've been an incredible resource here.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
yes.
So you said, sorry, with May 1st, May 31st?
No, May 1st.
Already.
I know, I was just like, no way, I was like, longer, so we have less for basic. Yeah, kind of miss you, but we're not letting you go yet. We're gonna have lots of questions this year. So, yeah. Thank you, Les.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna defer item number 3, which is, CSD director's update. Hopefully Scott can join us today, but perhaps not. All right, Steph, I'll hand it over to you for the ARP update.
Sure, the annual report committee met today. And really the purpose of today's meeting was for us to try and make sense yet again, the chaos that seems to swirl around the annual.
No kidding.
To formalize and finalize a direction for. So as you all know, and we just started watching a bad movie over again, reading those minutes. But OPSD does not have a annual report. And of course, we went through quite a bit to change the statute to include our annual report in OPSD's. Scott has made it very clear that he has no intention of doing an annual report. Oh, we can't blame him. And so really where we're at right now is where we have always been, which is that we have a standalone annual report requirement. And I, having been on this committee for the entire time that I've been on this council, and having, chaired it these last couple of years, I'm real wide-eyed about what's realistic for us to take on and for us to try and do well. And I know that we're all here because we love the environment, we care very much about it, and we want to be meaningful and impactful. That is not lost on me, or I think any of us. So today was really for me to kind of update the committee on where we're at, and the fact that, again, go back to square one with the standalone annual report requirement. And for us to have a real honest conversation about our recommendation to you all today on what we think that annual report should look like. And so our recommendation coming out of that conversation with all of this context is that the 2023 annual report we recommend should look a lot like the 2022 annual report, which is a summary, if you will, of our council's doings. And we really appreciated how each committee got an opportunity to put in their highlights in terms of not having a lot of space, but able to get across sort of the main ways of what this council does. Michelle had a great recommendation that in addition to committees providing a summary of what they've done throughout the year, and this is a bit up for us to have conversation here today, is to have somewhat of a concluding statement or sentences around what do we really want Scott to know? Or what do we really want our legislators to know? Rep. Lowen, Senator Gabbard, whether that be a takeaway or a lesson learned, or whether that be something more forward-looking, like a target. And the opportunity there is that we know readership of the annual report is limited. We know its dissemination is limited. In fact, we don't even know how the thing's going to be disseminated with OPSD not having enough report requirement. So in an effort to make this report both reflective for us as a council to look back on it, for those in the future to look back on it and say, oh, okay, this is what the council did. But at the same time, offer opportunities for the document to be guiding, for each committee to be able to set, I don't know, Ron, if maybe we've done X number of exemptions lists this year, and next year, I really want us to do, or the committee wants us to do 20, or we're going to highlight X, Y, and Z agencies to make sure they get in here, and they, as an example, and maybe for INO, something similar around forums or outreach or documents to share. But that it's an opportunity again for the annual report to serve us well and to be something that we can come back to and both reflect on and guide. So that's our recommendation. Sort of just on format front, we want to keep it short. We want to keep it to a couple of pages, recognizing that readership is low and we don't want to send some 10-pager that will likely not get read. And there was a lot of discussion around, well, I'm going to stop there. And that was a really long recommendation, but want to, open it up for thoughts and open it up for others on the committee. Tessie, Michelle, and Roy to share as well.
Yeah, because it is a recommendation at a committee, we don't need a second, so we'll just we have essentially a motion on the floor for the proposed direction for this year's 2024 annual report. Yeah, go ahead.
Motion.
Long motion, well, basically the motion is to, if I, summarize, to approve the proposed content, right, for 2023, but we're in discussion, so if folks wanna talk about it, amend it, that's what we're
I'll second it for discussion.
We don't need it.
doing. But we'll take it, and
I just want to clarify. This is the 22 report that you.
2023.
For the year
This is,
2023.
so we're gonna pay attention from now till the end of this year, and then we're gonna talk about it in January.
We're gonna do highlights.
No.
No, yeah, so we have to have like a draft to the council by the October meeting.
Okay.
So a summary of
Right.
what's happening.
So
Which is
what,
what the day after.
so our activities in the calendar year 23. What are we doing about the calendar year 22? We did it already.
We did, yeah.
Done.
That's when we wrote that little thing. Yeah, okay.
So Mary, so we'll say, we did a bonds presentation, a series of.
Yeah, right. Yep, yep. Okay.
The
I'm good.
difference, it would be similar to this format, except we would add this either, lessons learned or reflective or looking forward statement. Sort of say, this worked really well this year, or what didn't work this year. Then next year we'd like to target, or next year we want, so that it's, the Steph said, the document works for us, since we don't know where it's gonna go after the director's desk. We know the document will work for us if we have to spend a little time reflecting on each.
I think the opportunity could too to make recommendations, what the committee has chosen. What the committee recommends. and things like that.
On the budget. So who in the state is doing the report on, who in the state is doing a report on the status of the environmental focus or priorities of the government, the current administration, the governor? Who's doing the temperature check for how the state is doing?
I don't know that anybody is doing it for the state as a whole, right? I assume, individual agencies have certain reporting requirements.
But we don't know that.
Well, not us.
Because that was the point
Yeah.
before, how is Hawaii doing? So we're no longer saying that, we're saying, how are we doing? So who's doing how's everybody else doing?
Good point.
So we have the vision of a new administration. We have whatever the priorities are of each administration. And whatever their administration's expectations, reporting requirements are of those agencies. But it's no longer EAC's Juliana to touch that conversation. Or that reporting, or
We're not saying that's not in our focus, right? District 41 kind of
yeah,
said that.
that's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, number one, like, to be frank, we haven't been doing that, right? We tried to do it limitedly a couple of years ago, but even the capacity to interview, what did we look at 5 agencies? That took us months to schedule, to write up, that was a really good report in terms of seeing what their goals were. Feedback was kind of the same across all agencies. We have all these goals. We're actually, a lot of the agencies, we're doing a lot of them, but at the end of the day, they all said the same thing. We need more staff and more money, right? So, I think we'll probably get similar answers from that, right? So putting that aside, right, what's realistic for what we can actually do? Robin and then Michelle.
Yeah, what if we did it a little differently? What if, given the fact that we were told to put our report into a non-existent report, that we simply did no annual report in 23 and went back to the legislature in a conversation about 24 to clarify where this report should be hosted, if at all. Given the limitations that we've all learned, we can't do what many of us would like to do. We don't have the resources or the time for it. Maybe we struggle too much with this, and given the fact that there is no place to put this, we simply don't do it.
My thought is to not ignore it, because I think it's so clear we have to do an annual report. I don't think we should depend too much on the fact that technically OPSD doesn't have one because, you know, the director has stated that they will accommodate us in terms of getting it submitted. So I wouldn't say we should just say, well, because technically we don't have one, we don't need to have one. That's a, you know, I mean, maybe, you know, our AG can opine on that particular requirement.
Well, the requirement is provide the report to OPSD.
Yeah.
So that is the base requirement. And after that, it says, which will then be put into OPSD's annual report. So the base requirement is to do a report to OPSD.
From this council to OPSD on what we did.
Well, on, I guess, the things that you were mentioning before, technically.
The content's the issue, right? But
We got far afield.
yeah, which we haven't been, we've consistently had issues with the content of our annual report, right? In terms of what we can do as a council with our zero budget, right? So that's part of the problem, that's part of the frustrations that we have. We've seen that in years, the topics want to be more than it can be, right? Which, you know, we've had issues where we went far beyond our statutory requirements, right? So we have been all over the place, and I think that's the problem. So I like parts of what you said, Robin, in terms of going back to the legislature and getting a better idea of what we're doing. I don't think we should just ignore the annual report requirement. We're at least turning something in. You know, at least we're doing an update on what we've accomplished during the past couple of years, right? So I mean, I'm on board with what's, and it's my personal opinion, everybody can outvote me, and that's fine, and that's why we have a full council. But I like the recommendation from the annual report committee to part of what we've done for the year, goals for the next year. I think we should still get something into OPSD as required by statute, but I also do like the idea of going back to the legislature and maybe clarifying our requirements given our budgetary limitations.
So Michelle,
What came up in the meeting, and Roy brought up similar to you, Micah, concerns about what about the recommendations for, that the annual report can give, and, we felt that it's hard for the annual report committee to generate these recommendations. If they're not coming in from the different committees, then the annual report's responsibility is a different one than reporting, but now generating and hosting conversations, and we thought that fit better under strategic planning than it did under the annual report. But if we're cracking the whole thing open,
I'm gonna beat you to it, Ron. From my cheap seats, exemptions has more contact with a lot of what the agencies are doing than anyone else, and I could see exemptions submitting something, I don't know, good, bad, and ugly. But
That's
you
too
know,
much for
this,
exemptions is a lot.
well, no, we're doing it now. So we have these relationships and we have their submittals. Just simply say, we could simply say, these guys did, these guys didn't.
I mean, you can include that in the
Report card.
of what Stephanie suggested.
Yeah, there we, exactly.
Did
And
that
there-
last year to a
And
certain
to
extent.
expand maybe a little bit. I mean, I don't, since we're not really gonna get this out to anybody necessarily, I think we can kind of do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a suggestion that's a little out of left field. Yes, I have to like pronouns, so you can all outvote me. But I think it'd be very interesting for my own edification to get a one paragraph from each of you saying what you think the biggest environmental problem in our state is and what we have to address.
After we get past the word budget.
Thinking, without necessarily financial constraints attached to it, but what the direction that you think, because we were all put on this committee because we have interesting, well-considered perspectives. And I would love to see a statement of that. We kind of leave our opinions behind. We try to do with the committees, the work of the committees, but we're here because we have opinions and we have experience and judgment. One paragraph from all of us as a kind of a coda to the report, I think would be a marvelous record of this time and our commitment.
And then I would be very interested in what Robin has suggested with asking the legislative leadership and how they take the temperature, how they determine how well the state is meeting, because those are the environmental leaders, you know, how well we're meeting environmental goals such as we have them. Because we have them as a state, apparently.
We got in a lot of trouble.
Really
If you'll
big,
remember, if you'll remember, we got in a lot of trouble. Ron, I like your idea, except that our Attorney General, 3 Attorney Generals ago, really was really clear and adamant that we were expressing too much of our own personal opinions in that annual report. And so I hesitate, as much as I like your idea, I hesitate to make that the annual report component. Now, what might be a little more effective, it's taking your idea a step to the side, would be to speak to some of the leaders of some of the environmental organizations outside of the state. And get some of their, give the Sierra Club 1 paragraph in our annual report about what they'd like to see as an example. But much as I think we all would have great ideas about what we'd like to see, we were seriously scolded for doing that previously.
I agree with Robin. Because I think we've been down that road where so what are we supposed to do? Is that we've asked that question and never been able to answer it. We need to ask the leadership, what do they see, what we should be doing?
I'm gonna agree with Mike. Because again, I'm sure I haven't seen it all, but I've seen just this annual report take just about every single iteration, with all of us thinking really hard and long about it. And so, it brings me back to clarity on the statute and the need to edit it. When you read what we're responsible for doing with the annual report, it's ridiculous. We're always going to fall short and it feels junk. And so, and to Maka'ala's point, if we are being tasked by the state with doing this, which we are, that means perhaps somebody else is not. And so the ability to clarify that this is what we can or cannot do, then if, depending upon what our kuleana is, who else needs to play a role in this? And I honestly think that Scott's leadership right now in OPSD sets us up well for maybe making some change.
I would agree.
Yes, sorry, Roy and then Ron.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, yeah, we had a big discussion in our meeting. I joined the Environmental Council thinking I could make a difference. And I joined the annual report committee and I know thinking that'll be the best way to make a difference. So, but through the years, I'm thinking, wow, write these annual reports, no very reason, nothing happens. We have all the presentations, it's great, but kind of talking among the choir and we need the follow-up action. But anyway, so as far as the, I think it's good to highlight all the committee work and recommendations, but I think we need a unified theme that we can all agree on. And from my perspective, as I was telling the committee, is that I think right now what's lacking is, as Maka'ala mentioned, that we don't have a good mechanism to set priorities. I'm in the wastewater field, we get a lot of flack from environmental groups. But what's driving the actions is really lawsuits and public opposition or public opinion among environmental groups. Partially, the engineers and scientists don't get involved, and when we do, nobody listens. So we always feel we're always at a disadvantage. And so my feeling is we need to have an agency, a system where you take not only the environmental group's opinion or public opinion, but also the science and engineers viewpoint. And that's what's kind of missing. So before we had really strong technical expertise in DOH and what happened was because of funding, the environmental management program at DOH, it was eliminated. The environmental center was eliminated. Again, sorry, I'm repeating. I know I said this before, but a lot of the leadership roles have diminished, and now each department is working in their own silo. And who do you fund? Who's doing the priorities? So we spend billions. The CESCO is a multi-billion program. We have injection mold, another billion. And yet, we're not directing all the money that should be for watershed protection, all those other invasive species. Environmental programs get good funding when they get sued because you gotta do whatever the lawsuit says. The agreement. So that's it's kind of good for the municipal side, but there's all the other, I know Emma Yuen from DLR told me, unfortunately, the species who are suffering in the watershed, they can't sue. So, they're at a disadvantage. I think we need someone, some kind of department that really provides leadership, technical expertise, and priority setting and so on. And I don't think the legislature needs to be the one. I think the key is the department heads and obviously the governor.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's so I would say we can have a one unified theme. If everyone can agree that whether it's having a department of environment or just having a mechanism, we don't have to set the priorities. That's not our job. Our job is to say that we need a mechanism to set priorities. Whether it's a department of environment or whatever, that's fine. But just to make that recommendation and to kind of push it through it, I think all the committees can get involved with this INO annual report, council exemptions. Everybody has a say in this, and I think everybody has a common interest.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was. I think we can have all the committee reports, but it'd be nice to have some unified team that everyone can agree on and get something productive done. And
Right.
once you get the idea out, hopefully Scott would be the perfect person. I mean, office of planning, he can initiate something that would be great.
Well, I actually like what you said in terms of supporting, and maybe this is Robin kind of combining with what you said. We talked to Senator Gabbard and Ruffalo and next year, really, maybe we can use this year's report, have a paragraph to make the case that the council is not the one that should be grading all of the departments, right? And this try to help make the case for the Department of the Environment, Ruffalo has been trying to introduce that bill for years now. Because really there should be, like a state auditor should be the one doing the report and the audit of all of the departments and whether or not they're meeting their environmental goals. Like it shouldn't be us as as a volunteer, right? So.
Closest we get to that
Yeah.
is when we evaluate the exemptions. That's when the tire hits the road.
That's what I'm saying.
But even that's limited to that particular
Right.
agency and what that agency
That's right.
is doing. It's not an overall look at all of the departments. What are they doing? How is that contributing to the state's goals, right? So, I mean, it is, like Roy said, it's disjointed where everybody's operating in their own silos. And that's, hi Scott.
Yes.
Oh, you just came in for a super interesting part of the discussion.
Oh, awesome.
And there isn't one agency, like, we couldn't just do DLR, could not do, so there isn't. You could choose to do
Yeah.
2 a year.
Okay, so there's legislation, does that die to create
Yeah.
a Department of
It
Environment?
had, I think that was introduced again this year. I don't think it's on a hearing at all, right, Robin? That one hasn't moved at all. We're on the other.
It hasn't
committee.
Who was the introducer?
I think it was Ruffalo, yeah, so it's been,
She can't make it move, I don't know who's gonna make it move.
well, there's another hiccup this year, right? Because, and I think, Scott, you might have mentioned it last time. They created a new department of, was it public safety? And so we're actually law enforcement, so we're at the max, the number of departments. There.
Oh, gee,
So it's a max.
it's gotta count.
20 is the max. Okay, so maybe they quit.
We had room for one more,
That's my sense.
but not that one.
That's even more.
Yeah.
precious.
Yeah.
Easy to create a new department.
I'm gonna stick for restaurant here.
So there.
Right, so, but I mean,
Oh.
maybe that's, so, I don't know what I'm kind of hearing. Continued frustrations with the annual report, but I like the idea of, again, summarizing what we've done, looking ahead, maybe we can make the case, listen. We've argued about how do we fulfill our statutory, requirements for the annual report for years, and I mean, I think that a lot of us have been on almost 8 years now, like, can we even do it? it's probably more appropriate, you know, when maybe we can make the case to support again a Department of the Environment that is looking over all of the agencies that touch on environmental topics, and then maybe a suggestion that, you know, a state auditor come in and actually do that might be more appropriate, right?
I mean, my frustration is that with all the different fingers in the pie, nobody's looking at the pie. So if we have climate folks and energy folks and DLNR's folks and voting folks and aquatics folks and all these folks, I, as a taxpayer, would like to have something where there's, as a state, we have done well here, there's focus there because it will help everybody, agency, constituents, and everyone know where they need to step up. It would help me as a volunteer know where I want to put my energy. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of it, right? That's why we do, well, that's why we do strategic planning, but it's also why we do program project review of our own stuff, whatever it is we do in our own work, right? To see how, no, I feel like nobody's doing that for the state of Hawaii, and we're doing some really good stuff and we're leaving some really big focus.
So that conversation and fact checking and outreach around a possible recommendation endorsed by the full council of a Department of Environment, what committee would be best suited to have that, to take the reins on that? Is that ledge? Is that strategic planning? Is that INO? Does that?
Well, I think.
Fire against road
Council doesn't.
is exemptions.
Now,
You could review EAs and EISs, you could look through, right, I mean, this goes so much further beyond exemptions, even just with the little piece we touched, you can look at what kind of mitigation comes out of those documents, are the agencies following up with those it's
It's a full-time job probably, right, a separate department.
Oh, okay.
This is, yeah, I mean,
That's a fun job.
like, I know all of us would love to do this in our free time because we're such nerds about this, but we're all also working both time. Hey, Robin, I know you had something to say.
Wait, I'm not done, sorry.
Okay.
So my concern about this full council recommendation about the Department of Environment is making sure that, you know, that we really understand that recommendation. And how we get to the point of understanding that recommendation. If we're gonna leave this full council meeting today saying, yeah, annual report committee, that's what we want to see. I wanna have a better understanding of how we're gonna figure out that that's a smart recommendation.
I think that's premature. It's
Okay.
outside your, it's outside what your committee is charged of. I think it's a great discussion. We can have it later in ledge and then maybe set up an agenda item for that discussion at some point. But I don't think the annual report should be dealing with that.
Okay. So I think we're deferring action on the recommendation today. Which is good, we got it started in March this year, which is early. But it sounds like this might be going in a different direction now.
well, and I don't think it's good timing to sit down with legislators and have this conversation because they're in the heat of it right now. So as soon as everybody can catch their breath and say, so what do you think? You know,
Yeah. Sorry, Robin, I know you had something to say earlier.
No, I was just going to
Wait a minute.
suggest that we talk with Lowen and Gabbard as soon as we can, because one of the concerns I have that maybe, you know, Scott can comment on now that I see he's here. If we go to talk with Lowen and Gabbard and say as diplomatically as we can, the way in which you helped us really doesn't work because OPSD doesn't do an annual report. What if they then say, okay, Scott, you are now going to be required to do an annual report? And so I have some reservations about, you know, foisting this on him inadvertently. And we know the legislature, we know it firsthand, can often have unintended consequences of what it's doing. Nonetheless, I still think we need to, because it was a compromise that they worked out with us, I agree with you, Onana. I don't think we should move forward on Steph's well thought out recommendations right yet. I think we ought to try and talk with Gabbard and Lowen as soon as they're willing to do that.
Thanks. Okay, sorry, Roy and then Rob.
Okay, so when I made my comments, I just gave the Department of Environment as an example, but I know it's almost very difficult to create a new department. So my feeling is we just need a body that will look at environmental issues, challenges, and come up with priorities. And Scott, I'm thinking with the Office of Planning, if you can have some, whatever, new division or whatever, office, just looking at environmental priorities, having the necessary technical input and research, and then deciding where should money be spent. So before you came, I talked about so much has been spent on cesspools, all these things that to me there's way more important priorities, watershed protection, species and all those things. So that's what I see lacking. And previously, as I mentioned, was the Department of Health Environmental Management Program, but that went away. Environmental Center went away. So now somebody has to take over. I'm thinking, if we don't create a new department, maybe it should be Office of Planning.
Oh, wow.
So not to put more work on you, but you can get funding for just that.
Earlier have most. Oh, because we have such a broad directive and as such, it's okay. Yeah, right, environmental priorities of state, if it's not us, who else in the state does it, and none of us really know if there is somebody else. Who else, or somebody else in government who does it, so I don't know if you probably have a better understanding of that. If there is.
Yeah. Maybe a couple of thoughts on just on the Department of Environment bill. I don't know if you're aware, but Senator McKelvey introduced a bill. I don't know the latest status of it, but it was meant to pull out the Environmental Health Administration and the regulatory functions of the Department of Agriculture and put those together with the idea that it is primarily a regulatory department, not a policy department. So, that's a foundational difference for a lot of departments in how we think of ourselves. The DVED is not regulatory, right? Department of Ag kind of lives in both worlds. DLNR kind of lives in both worlds. But DLNR is primarily supposed to be a regulatory body, right? Regulating the use of land. Department of Ag kind of has a couple pieces. So McKelvey's proposal, and I don't remember the bill number, I was just trying to look it up. I don't know if it's crossed over to the House or not, but it's a discussion that I think is an interesting direction to take it. To just, in the past, I think the Department of Environment has kind of become a bush, and you don't know where to trim it and say this goes under environment, but this stays at DLNR and this stays at here and here. And I think McKelvey proposed an interesting concept. What's the regulatory pieces that should come together? And thought environmental health is a discrete set, and then the ag pieces could complement it. I think that was mainly pesticides and invasive species. I don't remember. It's like that's one idea that's on the table now.
Where's McKelvey from? Thank you.
You're right. Yes, it's that's the House version. So it's Senate Bill
Is that like EPA?
1597. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I think what I was thinking of was, and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, this wasn't very introduced, that was more pulling functions from yeah.
So that's Tennessee's kind of a here. Senate Bill 1597, the Hawaii Environmental Protection Agency. So that's one idea on the table. In terms of who else looks at this stuff, it is. What's that? Yeah. So
Really, they're not coming.
No, but it's for. No, but we're trying to find out, is there somebody auditing all this?
Oh, right.
yeah.
Speak louder so Robin can hear you.
I said, I don't think you want the auditor to actually
No.
audit because it's actually a bad thing.
Not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't want to give the auditor.
LRB,
Yeah.
LRB is usually a neutral
Oh,
look at stuff,
okay.
the legislative.
Yeah. The reason I just said auditor is
Yeah.
because they're essentially asking us
Yeah.
to look at every department, right? So, but for us to act as an auditor, I mean. It's
Could
not.
the question be as simple as, is the environment in the state of Hawaii better or worse for what we did in 2023?
Well, can we ask the departments to answer that? question?
Yes, that's what I thought we were doing.
But under what metrics? How do we-
Their own, whatever their own.
Bad job.
I know that's not
We did
consistent, and
that,
yes, we did do it, yes, we did.
We did it for 5 agencies and it took a really long time.
I understand.
So that's just the thing I'm saying. It is for us to produce it as an item great on top of the other things we're doing. We actually did that, I think. During rules, right? So that was a lot. We're not doing as much.
But my suggestion isn't that we do it or that we do it again. My
Right.
suggestion is that that's what I mean when I say what the end report ought to be on the environment. It ought to answer that question, whomever does it.
Whoever does.
This
right?
counselor or somebody else, and I don't know why the state has to do it for themselves, why wouldn't UH do it? Why wouldn't an independent contractor do it? Why wouldn't somebody else on the outside do it? I'll get mad at them, just mad as, I mean, we're gonna be mad, somebody's gonna be mad at somebody for what they say about it, but why wouldn't it be better if it was an independent person? I don't know why this has to be in-house at all.
No, I think that's what we all agree. It probably shouldn't be in-house,
Okay.
right? But,
Well, maybe we say that out loud.
no, right. And so are we in agreement? We would propose something like that in the annual report. We'll have to agendize this.
I would agree to it.
Yeah, but we also shouldn't just say it shouldn't be us. You guys figure it out. We should think of like a suggestion.
Well, we've tried it and it hasn't worked and it hasn't been helpful to the agencies or the ledge.
We haven't suggested this.
No, the other system. We tried that and that didn't work. And we're trying to comply and that's not within our capacity. So door number 3.
Well, what I'm hearing is that what could be a really viable and needed recommendation in the annual report is a recognition that somebody needs to be
do it.
looking at the environment.
That's what I'm saying.
And recommendations on who that might be. And I think to me that goes hand in hand with my earlier comment, which the more I look at the dang statute, the more it just, that language needs to change. It is not what we're doing.
Exactly.
And that's fine. And I just want to remind folks though that when we tried, because there were a lot of us in favor of getting rid of that annual report requirement 2 years ago. And but we got outvoted.
Well, because I want it done. I just don't necessarily want it done by others.
But this is why we still have this language. Just want to remind folks, like, it's not for
It's
lack
my
of
fault.
trying. Valid points for having an annual report requirement kept it. We're still not having the same conversation we've been having for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So just
Groundhog
keeping in context for why is that language still there? Do we have the ability to go to the legislators and request that it be changed? Yes, and we've seen, Senator Gabbard, Rep. Lowen have been very supportive of us, but we just gotta figure out what's the ask. How do we make it work?
Yes.
It's not happening in this session, so we still have to produce an annual report for 20.
Yes.
But
And the desk, we know it lands on. At this point, that's the desk that it lands on. So what we're writing is for the director. At this point. And what happens after that,
Okay.
we don't have.
We tell the director what it is.
That's right. I'm just saying,
We tell the director
just
what it
keep
is
in
that
mind
we
that's-
want, and then
that's-
we go do it.
We're just saying, hey, this is. So my statute says anyway.
Oops.
sorry, Brian had something to add?
Yeah, it was back a while. But I think it's still relevant because Stephanie brought it up. I echo what Robin says. And I don't think we should tie the creation of the Department of Environment to our annual. Okay, that's not the reason we need the department. We need it for a lot of reasons. Michelle brought some up. And it would help if that environment was an evaluative policy. Department of the Environment did that sort of thing. It may or may not, it might end up being just totally regulatory. But I still think that's, if you want to support it, we shouldn't say, then we don't have to do the annual report.
The reason that we have the regulations that we have for Hanalei specifically is to protect the environment. almost all of them are for that purpose. And when that's not occurring, the environment is damaged. It's really simple in my world.
All right. I think with that
Killed that big
said,
several ways.
annual report will not be on the full council agenda for a while. So do we need a vote on that recommendation?
So I think we need to vote to defer.
Well, can we just,
We did, oh, right, we can just decide to defer.
Wait, why are we deferring it?
Because the committee proposed a recommendation for content. And we have now introduced potential new content that was not part of the recommendation. I mean, unless
Such as,
including potential discussion for supporting a department of environment. I mean, actually, we could.
I really feel that's a separate issue.
yeah,
That's what
that
I
is,
was
I
Trying,
think-
that's what I was trying to say, that it's a, that we can still do an annual report for 2023 regardless of the status of any current or future
Right.
department of the environment.
So in that case, we still have the recommendation that we report what the council did in 2023.
with each of us making their small contribution?
Yes, well,
I don't know if that,
I don't know if that comes.
I don't think I got very much support there.
oh,
But
yeah, it's
yeah,
just
even if you-
committee.
Even if you don't put it in the report, send it to me.
Okay.
I'd like to have.
Listen to him.
I think that's a great topic for strategic planning. Sorry, I'm not passing the buck, but like, this is where we can kind of scope all these things, right? And then how do we put them into motion?
I don't have any problem with that. I have a serious problem with making the annual report about what we do and don't do. I don't have a solution. I just don't think,
I agree. I agree.
it doesn't address the ridiculous requirements that are in the statute for us. And we're going to continue struggling with this unless we get that statute changed in some way that is recognize the limitations of an all-volunteer group that can only meet once a month and has no budget. It's just, it was an attempt to get a simple solution into OPSD. That's not going to work. So, I don't have the solution what it should be, but I don't think it should be what the committee is recommending.
I agree with Robin.
So is there, if folks are comfortable with the recommendation to produce an annual report that's, similar to what we did for 2022 in terms of reporting what the council and each committee did, including the section for potential look forward of what we might want to do in 2024 and limiting it to that so that we can satisfy the submission of the annual report requirement. Then I think we can go, correct? That's in line with the recommendation. Okay. And are folks comfortable moving forward on that basis?
Robin just said that's what he
It doesn't.
He doesn't want
doesn't
to,
want.
he can vote against it.
Against it, yeah.
That's the recommendation.
That's the recommendation that came from committee. So if you don't want to do that, vote against it.
Right. That's
Okay.
fine.
So that's the motion on the floor. Are we done with discussing this?
How many more ways are you gonna vote?
All right, all those in favor of the motion for the proposed 2023 annual report content, as I just said. Again. Say aye. Okay, raise your hand if you're in favor and we just speak up.
Yeah, misunderstood.
He's agreeing with me, so something has to be
No,
done.
I think you want to vote no.
Yeah.
Only to know.
The vote is no.
I think you
Right
want
now.
no.
No, we're
oh,
voting.
okay.
We're voting yes.
You want to vote no.
Wait, okay.
He looks like the table and says.
For the new company. Let's do it. Gonna be unanimous.
Gonna be with
Do I need
the,
to amend their vote?
I think so.
Okay, so we're not unanimous, so I'm gonna start with Montalvo.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, wait, so I'm sorry. Name.
Staff.
Sorry. Okay.
Dawn.
Dawn.
Yes. Staff, yes.
Yes, yes.
Oh, no, yes.
Maybe Sharon, yes.
So Lefebvre, yes.
Ontario, yes.
Like Tulane? Yes.
Or no.
Robin,
No,
Mahina?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion
Why don't we have
carries.
split votes?
Yes, fine. Here. Fine.
We are still missing
Tanya.
Warden too.
10-4, 3 no's. Yep.
Yes, 3 no's.
But to follow up, I think we
Roy,
have
Jean, and Robin.
some things for future agendas here. You know. Which is Department of the Environment, our position on that. And what the potential content would be. And then also contents of future annual reports, because a lot of this was based on, this is the 2023. I didn't vote for this to be the content forever and ever, right?
Right.
This is the 2023 report. I would like to see it be different. But I think for 2023.
I'd like the 2023 report to reflect what just occurred, to have it say, this is an impossible statute, da, da, da. I would like the 2023 report to say that, instead of how we think we did.
It's open an existential crisis on the council.
Yes, well, because the statute is, yes.
Well, and that could potentially be the takeaway or recommendation, what you'd like to call it for, say, the ledge committee. Right? Or the strategic planning committee.
In the past, we had an annual report that addressed the statute pretty well. And it was done by staff at OEQC for the most part.
And this guy,
That's
like a
what I'm
month
saying.
of not sleeping at 180 pages.
But if we had another Scott, I'm not sure there are two in the universe, but if we had 2 Scott Glens, we could have an annual report that looked like that in the past, except for be better because it would have benefit from all the new technology, data, big data gathering. I think it could be done. I said that 2 years ago, so I just won't beat that drum too much. I think it could be done. It's just a matter of capacity. Steph, you certainly don't have the capacity to make that report. Scott doesn't anymore, but there's someone who could and would, and that's not a whole department.
But who reads it?
Yeah,
Yeah, so my question would be, I agree with you. And is that where we want, is that the impact? Is that where we're gonna make the greatest impact? That was a huge amount of time. Does that translate impact? Or are there other ways that we can use that time or a fraction of that time to make greater impact?
That's a strategic planning
And that's a
question.
strategy
Yeah, let's make Robin
question.
figure that.
He voted no, so you know.
Oh, yeah, because he sees, he has a bigger vision for what
I'm-
the annual report could be, yeah.
But you know, and I. Yeah, thank you.
This is a tough one. Keep coming back.
But we want to do what we've been asked by statute to do. And we also want to know how well the state is doing. Do any of us have the overall? I don't have the overall picture. I have a very focused picture of how the environment in the state of Hawaii is doing in the last year. I'd like to know.
Benchmarks.
Yes, of course I do.
How much do folks look at the Aloha Plus Challenge dashboard
Never.
or metrics or?
Once
Once a year.
what's the status of that?
Well, that explains how you don't look at it.
Okay, thank you, Anana.
Well, thank you to the annual report committee and for everybody in participating in this discussion. While we have Scott, just in case you, I don't know if you need to leave early, but I'm gonna go back to your.
Sure.
Just in case.
I am noticing that you changed your computer, your famous Surface that you.
I was forced to.
Because you forced all of us into buying Surfaces, yeah. They weren't gonna support your Surface.
Yes,
Robin.
So it's retired.
That's not good,
I got a,
yes,
this is a nice one.
okay. Okay,
Okay, well, thank you guys, and I'm really glad to see everyone in person.
We're glad to
actually
see
met
you.
in person.
Yes, and.
We've done
It was
Zoom
on-
calls.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
on a-
Didn't you meet at my house?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
yes.
you did. It's another question. I don't know if I've seen you since you.
No, because Scott and Lana are the ones who got me into the environmental. When we were at the Sheraton 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
dying in the heat and we're in the air conditioner hiding away.
Yes. Yes.
That's how they get you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, around me in the opportunity. You should be on the EAC, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, I still think it's a strength of the council to have folks from every island.
Absolutely.
It's continued to show that. So I guess a few things, you probably are aware tomorrow is confirmation period. And so I'll be putting forward some ideas, recommendations, thoughts, approaches to how I'd like to handle Office of Planning and lead it. One of the things, and I think you guys were touching on this a little bit earlier. One thing that I'd like to do is better integrate the environmental review process into the operations of the meeting. And so some of the things that have already started, right, is I've been asking some of the other program managers to reach out to Tom and Les to involve them in questions of EAs and EIS. So if an environmental question comes up, check with them and see what they know about the situation. So we're starting to build some of those dialogue that maybe, I don't know to what degree it might have happened before, but it's certainly on my mind that, you know, as we get questions and we want to know, was environmental review ever done for the project? You know, make sure, you know, create those
Was
opportunities.
it 35,000 years old?
Right, right. And then, you know, I'm starting to become, starting to better understand the merger and some of the issues with it in terms of just IT administrative things that we're going to start tackling. You know, the website, how that stood up. I also think that OP will be able to bring some resources to the environmental review program and this discussion. You know, one thing that I always felt a little, I felt regrets about was we never got the guidebook out before I left. You know, we got the rules done, we got the flow chart out, and then the guidebook sat there. And in the 4 years that it sat there, Office of Planning has really built an expertise in story maps. So I don't know if you guys have worked with story maps much, but it's an Esri product that built on ArcGIS Online. And actually Land Use Commission just rolled out a new story map yesterday for how to walk through the district boundary amendment process. It's
Great.
really nice, very straightforward.
Or policy. What the story.
Yes, yeah, yeah, so I'm really interested to see about how we can bring the story map approach that OP does to perhaps the guidebooks. Maybe we're not going to actually release a PDF, we'll see. But, you know, is there a kind of step through, scroll through, this is how you walk through kind of thing. You know, some of those, it's story maps to me are really dynamic, they're engaging, right? Pictures, data, and videos, and all those things can kind of be woven together to help tell a story. So that's something that's kind of in the back of my mind that I can see us working on together. ERP, the advisory council, and some of the other programs, especially the GIS program. When I was at OEQC and we had our young rising star, Zach, who's now doing very well at DPP. And he's ensconced there, and since we got Katya and Harrison from DPP, they would kill me if I also tried to get to Zach. But so one thing that Zach and I played around with was actually doing a story map for an EA. Like to actually take an EA and break out the structure.
A specific EA.
Yes.
I like it because that the community could follow along and participate in that conversation because they had that experience.
So those are some things that now that the competence and the story map tools are more fleshed out and developed, might be interesting to explore. You know, seeing if an agency has maybe a relatively straightforward EA, not some massive 1,000-page type thing that's redeveloping a whole part of the island or something. Something relatively straightforward, graspable, that's an EA. That has a pretty defined set of impacts and studies that you're really looking at. That might be a tool. So those are some things I'd like to get into. And then also the data itself. So, one thing that I was trying to do with the OEPC annual report was every year say how many EAs were done, how many EISs were done, how many supplemental impact statements were done. And that kind of fell away. And so that's something that I would also like to make available on our website, ideally in a live dynamic kind of where every issue comes out and here's the updated numbers. So people can kind of see real time, 2 weeks over 2 weeks, year over year, here's how things are tracking, because the EA and EIS process is really in some ways it's a leading indicator or a dragging indicator of development overall, right? It tracks how much money, how much construction, how many things are going on. And if you see a bunch of EAs coming out next year, it's because we had a surplus this year. Legislature appropriated a ton of money, pushed it to the departments, they contracted it, and now the EAs are under, right? So these are trends that help people understand what's going on, that we can make that data available. Another question, and I'll probably bring this up tomorrow, so I just want to say it, that I feel like the affordable housing exemption has been working. And so I asked Tom to pull together all of the projects that used that exemption. And so we have a short list. I don't think it's all of them, but it's the ones that got published in the notice that you pulled together. We did a little ground truthing with DPP, but I don't think we got to the other counties.
Is it a lot?
It's well, it depends on how you define wrong.
More than 10?
I think it is more than 10. But I also,
There's 2 on Hawaii Island.
to me, it's not so much the projects, but the number of units. I'm kind of interested in how many units benefited from this, because
That's what really matters.
yeah,
And if you can break them down into, studio and 1 bedroom and whatever. Right.
so I
How many people are now under a roof?
right.
Remember yesterday.
Well, I don't have that detail, but
Oh, can.
what I think is the success story effort is that we tried something really new, right? We were a little uncomfortable about it. And there's been a number of projects, probably in the hundreds of units now, that have been, given the exemption, and either they're under construction or they're occupied. And they're in urban areas, they're the places we wanted them to go. And as far as we've been able to tell, no project has been mitigated over abuse of the exemption. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been no detrimental environmental impacts.
Yeah,
That made us reconsider the propriety of an exemption.
really, yeah.
Wow.
So to me, and if you're saying that, that further confirms it for me, because I feel like you'd be one of the first people to know that was
But
really the problem. So I think that's a really success story to tell about the work of the council and how you can look at government process and look at tools that can make things work better, achieve our goals better, while still protecting the public interest.
And collaborate among the groups too, you should point that out, the collaborative process by which they.
So that's probably going to be something that we'll be engaging in dialogue as well. Because I have heard some criticisms of the rules from folks. There's some frustration with some recent court decisions. There's frustration about the implementation of some of the rules. And so, I was telling Manana, I don't think we should wait 20 years again to revisit these rules.
No kidding.
And so this could be an opportunity to say, okay, we did it, we let it run for a few years. Now the paint's chipping, the polish is off and the tires have been kicked. And so what needs fixing? What really needs some adjustment? And so maybe we do take up a more focused look at the admin. And I know there's been some dialogue going on, some bit of a working group already happening. And so getting that input and talking to you guys and saying, okay, let's see, do we do this? And Allison, I promise we won't be as crazy as the last time we did it. But I still believe in really robust public. You know.
It wasn't
talk about-
crazy at all. It was just fine. It was well done, but yeah. We were all over.
If that's it. So anyway, this is kind of just some thoughts that I just want to put on the table with you guys about where I see things heading, probably some points I might be touching on tomorrow, so you're not surprised about it. If you have feedback or adjustments or counterpoints, I'd love to hear them so that I'm not saying anything you guys disagree with tomorrow. But yeah, anyway, that's the main thing I just wanted to bring up.
Any questions for Scott or any or questions you want to allow that there so that you can get some process for tomorrow?
I don't think you're gonna get too much.
But I hope you hear what I'm saying, that I have a lot of work. It's yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Brian is like.
Don't put me on.
yes.
Get you back on.
Well, and I think that alignment you talked about, Scott, with what was OP, right? And then now making those connections. Or with ERP is huge, and a lot of what we're, spend an hour on talking about the annual report is just one small space where that sort of leverage and relationship can really benefit the environments. Just does.
Well, it's actually interesting to say that because Environment Hawaii did an article on Hawaii County and Office of Housing and Development. The ways the developers are getting around things.
Of course, yeah. We're known for creativity, nothing else, fantasy things. In my neck of the woods, it has birthed two brand new organizations that focus on it, that focus on affordable housing and have collaborated and cobbled together creative funding to make it happen because the opportunity was there. The community is looking at ways, ways to work together and help, as opposed to just anti-development. Wait a minute, they want to build something. How do we fit this in? That sometimes you got to push them to make them do that, but they're doing that. I mean, it's been very interesting. I hope it sticks. I hope we actually get people under the roofs, but
Yeah, for the right reasons.
the conversation is going the way I had hoped it would, but we'll see. Brick and mortar is another subject, but then it's still slow and interest rates aren't helping. Yeah. And have fun tomorrow. Just have fun. You'll be fine.
1 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And then we did as a council submit
How many of you testified individually? No?
I think-
In mind to do this. I'll do it right now. Yeah.
Dun. Like they have to. Nobody
Oh,
feels
yeah.
that way,
You're
John.
so pushy.
Isn't it already
Testify against too. So it's for or against whatever.
encouraged?
Comments.
One of the things that I was thinking when you were talking to us about, I want to go out for another robust, process. I was thinking that might be an opportunity, which we didn't do this last time, to bring the planning department into that room, into that space, into that conversation and say, you see, this is what we're doing. We didn't do that. We just did essentially Scott and, whoever from whichever island and the public, but I'm thinking, because we're planning county stuff to go, well, why do we want to do that? Well, come meet the people that, listen to what they're working under. It might be another venue for that. I can pressure them to do it. Just to put the government and the people back in the same room.
I agree. Zoom was helpful to create the opportunities. For That still doesn't substitute us having direct.
But now they know that it's not terrifying and it's not weird and they can't talk and these people don't have horns. And so, okay, maybe.
Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna keep moving for our agenda just so we don't run out of time.
Thank you, Scott. Good luck tomorrow. You don't need my luck, but good luck.
Right, and I'll hand it over to Marion for the INO committee.
Thank you. So the INO committee took what is in 3 pages within the very big 9-page document that combines all of our groups together into one. So we took those 3 pages and we broke it down into into 4 pages, single spaced, who does what when. And we'll be submitting that for your approval at the next meeting. We're gonna do, we have planned for the end of May. And actually, Dawn, following pretty much this process with the Fish and Wildlife for our next forum, created a conversation with the presenter that made the presenter realize that this was a bigger deal than they thought it was. And so they've now gone to their bosses for approval. They think that they maybe should be bringing someone else in besides just them as a presenter. So we moved it from the end of, so now that moves our event from the end of March, beginning of April to the end of May. And so that's where.
That's a good reason for a
But
delay.
yeah, absolutely. And, so this is all working. So we're going to use that form like as a sample case that we're going to set up and we'll submit with you with this timeline and show you how it will work.
They often do not know what impact or effect they have on the public. They simply don't know. And you may have been their first interface with, we want to know more about this thing that you do, and they may never heard that before.
So, since we do have our fearless leader, Scott Glenn, in the room, I'm just going to point out that there were a number of items that we took off our list because they required money. There were things that would be nice or good ideas to do as forum presenters or providers that we have to withdraw from the process because we don't have budget.
You know,
It's just a forever situation.
it's so HB 300 is being heard tomorrow. And Governor's Message 1, the green budget has been submitted, and we're testifying in support for funds for restoring Office of Planning's operational funds, and folded into some of that is also the ERP. You guys are part of operational funds. So
Well, hopefully that will succeed.
see
It's they have to put their money where their mouth is. They've got all this stuff. They've been mouthing a lot of stuff.
just a note on the money, right? It's a one-time money, so most of the focus is on one-time uses and not operational programmatic. They don't want to, they're minimizing the amount of ongoing expenses that they're being done, just because there's a. So
That's fair for a surplus, but this is a different conversation. I would suggest we qualify for some of the green fee. Doesn't all go, doesn't, well, fair enough, but then it doesn't all go to, DLNR, which is not efficient, and that it go to some of the things that provide some oversight.
I think part of that legislation is to have a strong to make those right decisions.
Yeah.
So now
Right back into the rules again.
I'll have to double check. Maybe I'm thinking of it.
oh, well, there's been a ton of
Right.
things we tried. What's going on with the country million permit fund?
Both of the bills were deferred, so they're dead for the session. The conversation has shifted to another bill that is natural resource funding for the. I don't know if they're considering $100 for it, but it's kind of open-ended, big to get kind of funding to get kind of one-off, I think, CIP kind of stuff. And I think there's still interest in trying to set up some type of climate impact fund. And what it might look like, what it could be allowed to do. There's a couple, there's a lot of details to figure out, and so the consensus developed, I think that's still. Not to be opaque, it's just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes.
No, we have
Questions for Mary?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
What about that EAC? Yeah. I don't know.
Right, well, because we're moving Fish and Wildlife to May, we thought we'd check with you and Rep. Bowen for late June, early July, I'm sure your travel schedules.
Yeah, very late June would work, or July.
Okay. And we'll probably say July as long as it's for Rep. Bowen.
Okay.
Like to have that 30-day break there.
Thanks very much. Robin, I'll hand it over to you now for the legislative.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me, guys, hear me?
Yes,
Very well.
very well.
Okay, I can, I hate to say this, but I can only hear Makaala's voice.
I think everybody is talking way too softly
Soft,
in
okay.
here. Everybody's
we're-
whispering,
So-
and this has got to be recorded.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell.
Thank you, Robin. I tried to project.
It's been a challenge, especially a lot of what Scott said, I'm sure was critical, but I missed so much of it. Good luck tomorrow, Scott. Okay, very briefly, the legislative committee was unable to meet. There were travel hassles up and down and from the Big Island and on Lanai. So Mahina and I did not hold the meeting. So let me briefly tell you what we were going to talk about. I'm just going to update you. There are 4 bills that had comments submitted. One of them was on wells. One of them was about hearings in impacted communities for EA and EIS. One was the new definitions for wetlands, and the last one was the bill to clean up some of the language in 341. The comments were done by Ron and Onauna, and I think Michelle, you helped on one of them as well. So thank you all for that. I helped Ron on one of them, but it was great having Onauna's eyes on all of them. There was testimony submitted for Scott for tomorrow. And I understand a number of individuals in this room and here submitted, both Sal and I submitted comments about Scott. So the only other thing I wanted to ask was if any of you have any concerns about any of the other bills that are on the attached version 5. If there's anything you want us to consider submitting comments on, you need to let Onauna and or I know, and we'll try and draft them up. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that. The Mary and Scott, the crossover deadline is, I think, the 9th. Is that right, Scott, Mary?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The 9th.
Today
Okay.
and tomorrow are Bodoramas.
I'm sorry.
Today and tomorrow are Bodoramas.
Okay, so I can't give you great updates. You can easily take those bills and look on the ledge. It's usually about a day late, and some of the information once the committees have made their recommendations. Some of these bills were deferred, some are not moving. And I think you guys were talking earlier about the green fee bills, and I don't know if that's been, if the ledge leadership has settled on 1 or 2 to move forward, but I haven't been able to ascertain which one that is. So if there any comments or questions, any other bills that you wanted to talk about?
Hey, Robin, I have a question on the well bill. Did you submit testimony on that one?
Yeah, Ron and I, that's the one that Ron and I,
Okay,
Ron and I made comments on that, and it was submitted, yes.
okay, thank you.
It was
Hey,
brilliant.
Robin, I'm just wondering, if I go on the ledge site, I'm not super adept at it. If it crossed over to the other house, what will it say about the bill? Does it Does it say literally that crossed over to Senate? Or is there some other term that you see? How do I know? Or maybe
No,
Mary?
you'll need to look at I'm looking at a bill right now. See, so I see, this isn't one of our bills, it's a land use bill. And so I see that it got heard has a double referral.
Right,
So it got heard by both committees, got passed out of both those committees. That means
It's gonna go.
okay.
You gotta know that. It's like a secret code.
Okay, so if there's two committees and it says passed by both,
It's gonna
then
go.
it's possible.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And then the next thing you'll see is the referrals in the house to which it, in the body to which it went. So if it's a Senate bill that's gotten all its committee's approvals, it will then, the next thing you should see is just in the very beginning of the Senate bill, you'll see House bill referred to X committees. And that's how we know the process is moving forward.
Will that be on the
On the
comments?
status report.
On the
It'll be on the
status?
status report. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so it's like, on 214, it went out as a second committee. Now it's 3-7, and now it's was a House bill, and now it's been referred to Senate committees. That's your confirmation that it's crossed and the Senate is gonna now the Senate has assigned the committees that's gonna be heard. Then that's also the secret code that you can tell whether the House and the Senate are in sync on something. Is if a bill that was a simple one committee hearing in the House now has a triple referral in the Senate,
It's doomed.
you know, then you can, then you know, you need to be working on, if it's a bill you wanted, you need to get to the president of the Senate and say, please re-refer that, get rid of 3, at least go down to 2, so that you can keep alive.
Now, it seems like a lot of these committees are meeting joint, right?
Well,
So that's not a,
that saves time. No, excuse me, Scott.
go ahead.
If you see, like, so you see a 3 committees, but you got, if you have commas between the committees, that means they have to have separate meetings.
Okay,
If you see a slash, that means they have to meet together.
okay.
And sometimes it's harder to get 2 committees together than it is to just let them have 3 separate meetings, depending on which committees they are. And you really just have to learn it in your gut, who those committees are and what the capabilities of the chairs of them are. You know, when somebody's been a chair of consumer protection for 20 years, bang, bang, bang. You got a new consumer protection chair, things are gonna move slower. Stuff like that just comes in, it's the human factor.
So in other words, call you if I have a question.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to address what you're looking for a pat answer and there really
I
isn't
find
one.
it confusing.
It's intentionally designed that way.
No, it is. It's intentionally
Yes.
designed that way. So it is what it is. I think the other thing is that there are, majority whips and so forth, whose offices you can call and say, what is going on? Nadine is one. Call her office and they've got somebody there to just answer that question. That's what they're for. Doesn't have to be the person who's on the bill or whatever. That's what a whip is for.
Just call Mary or me or Scott. We'll help you out.
One thing to be aware of is when it does cross over, usually it gets the same committees.
Yeah.
They'll map it. So if on the Senate side, it went X, Y, Z, on the House side, it'll probably be X, Y, Z. Unless like what Mary just said, there's other things going on. But if it went to ag, it'll probably go to ag on the same side.
Is there a committee, a death committee? Send it to this committee, it means.
Judiciary.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is.
I'm just-
Yes.
Yeah, if they want to know if what they're talking about is legal, that's pretty much the end of the conversation.
After crossover, I will give out a version 6 and ask Wes to share it with everybody of the bills we're tracking so we can hopefully keep them in our eyes. Okay, so that's it from the legislative committee, unless there's any questions or comments.
The other thing you can do is you can set alerts. That'll come from the ledge to you based on that. Yeah, I use that.
But it only gives you a status update set for hearing or something. Like it's not gonna tell you, hey, this isn't moving, you better get work.
No, it doesn't tell me that, but it does tell me where it is.
I didn't have any new bills to track, but I did have a little extra time one day and I wanted to see what testimony was provided in support of the public hearing bill, which we provided testimony against, saying that there was already public comment processes built into the 343 process. So I was just curious what people said why they thought there needed to be public hearings, so the people that were in support. And you know, like this is a no-brainer. EAs and EISs are paperwork exercises, you know, community doesn't get input. I thought that dovetailed into maybe Scott, what you were saying about the story map idea. Think something that really highlights to the public, whether it's generic or an accompanying one to a physical document, that helps people see where they have input in the process, because apparently it's not clear, right, to people who care and who want to be in the process, when's their time to jump in. So I just thought that was interesting when I saw that testimony supported it.
Tom from ERP and because Michael Kane for OCCL both did a good job at that, hearing and, you know, answering questions. And I do think some points, it didn't quite get into the difference between an EA and an EIS though. But which is a little bit of a nuance, but we touched on in our written testimony on behalf of the council, basically, you know, the position we took was that, you know, an EA, there's a determination essentially that there will not be significant impacts for that reason. You know, public scoping it's not required, but for an EIS, they are required. So, yeah.
So many comments you often get, you know, whether you're on, especially on an EIS process, you know, that you get on the EISPN or on analysis content, and you haven't done the analysis because you're just in the EISPN part of the process. So I think just helping the public understand where you are in the process can help them know how to comment, right? Because otherwise they're not sure what they're commenting on. They're like, this EIS is lactate. That's not an EIS, that's an EISPN. So we know that because we prepare them, but the public isn't.
No, public really doesn't know that.
Savvy, right?
The senators, you know, that heard that bill, they were pretty satisfied once they heard their requirements. They were like, okay, good.
So that's what Ron is gonna touch upon. Right? That's what Ron is gonna touch upon on his talk. Right, Ron?
Gladly.
Yeah, very specifically about when you can say what your concerns are, how you develop your concerns. How do you, as your own person in the community, decide that you need to comment, decide that this is a thing of concern? You know, having just people, we have people that just go willy-nilly want to comment on everything, and that's not useful to anybody nor to the process. So, you know, when does it concern you? You know, and
How to make it substantive.
yeah, and then, yeah, how to make a difference in your comments. If you want to go to the trouble of commenting, how can those comments be useful, impactful?
Well, that's where a story map.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
good.
it helps.
I'm not sure that a whole EA deserves a story map and would benefit from a story map. Scott, you and I will have a conversation about that.
Yes.
I believe most story maps are selling. And I never want to see an EA be a sales job. So because they're so pretty and lead here and there, they can lead you, but they can also hide things, you know. So something in a sense beautiful about an EA, because it's like a document from the 1950s. It's just very black and white. And you can't conceal things, and there's certain content requirements you can't pretty up. But things like location, the nature of resources that are out there, those would really benefit from the story map concept. There's some way to do a kind of a hybrid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, open, I'm just floating the
I'd be happy
idea,
to help.
so yeah, I would love to.
Where you are in the process, you know, like something floats that says.
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
I've done a couple and they're great. They're so wonderful. But, you know, we're always making it nice and pretty, trying to appeal to people, trying to get people to click through.
I'd be interested to see how storyboard is. You know, that would really
That's a good.
sufficiency of a.
You don't have one, we don't have any example yet?
It has to be supplementary, not in place of.
Well, I just wanted to note on this bill, testimonial piece submitted. This is an example where I tried to use data, so yeah, I worked with Tom and Les to get an EAS publication spreadsheet. And, you know, did some basically pivot tables with it to figure out, you know, what is around the maximum or higher end average publication of drafts in any one issue. And so over the last 30 years, we can have as many as 10 to 12 draft EAs and EISs in one issue, which would mean we would be doing 10 to 12 public hearings in that 2 week or in that month cycle. You know, because that the way the bill was proposed would be on the last day. So OP would have to be resourced to a degree that it can handle on the upper end, 10 or 12 public hearings
That's a lot.
on the same day.
Yeah.
That's a
On
lot.
multiple islands at the same time. Like that's just, that right there was just, you know, and then looking at the
Scary.
total number annually, it's over 70 EAs and EIS. So we would be conducting 70 public hearings throughout the year.
That's all you'd be doing.
Right? That's what the program would become.
You'd hire someone to do the public hearings,
Right,
test the keys, and then go.
right. So just being able to know that data, I think really helps legislators see, oh, okay, this is the scale of what we're actually.
And every new applicant for a daycare center behind the YMCA, which will get you an EA, is gonna have to hire a professional public hearing. You know,
Have
person
the money
too.
for it.
Yeah.
So you just don't.
Yeah, and be able to afford it.
Yeah, have the money.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this moving, guys. Any other questions on?
We're having so much fun.
No, thank you. Well, thank you very much for listening to me and Robin. Still on you, Robin, for the strategic planning update.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank those of you who responded to the information I sent out, asking you to fit within a category, and I want to scold those of you that did not, and I won't name names, but you'll know, because we really need to get a better scan of what categories we need as we begin recruiting, or not begin recruiting, but as we help in the recruitment process. As was pointed out so well by Ron earlier when we talked about this, we don't pick our successors, but we can guide people that we think would be valuable to apply. Let's put it on the website. We need to have a way of having a conversation about what of those categories that are part of our statute are we looking to add, and that would help us focus on who we should talk to. So I think it's important for us to have a better sense of what categories, and there are probably 15 or 20 just listed in the statute alone. One of the things I was hoping we could talk about here is what role and how do you want to play that role in recruiting new people to join up? And here's an example of the challenge. I asked a couple of people in the environmental community to recommend people that they thought would be good additions to the Environmental Council. And somebody sent me the name of someone that I don't know. And I thought, what kind of responsibility do I, as an EAC member, have to do a first look at somebody? Or do I have that responsibility at all? Should I just say, okay, here's a person who's interested, just send this person to the boards and commission site? Or should we do any kind of looking at it ourselves? So I throw that question out to you in a broad sense. How do you want to play a role in helping to pick the next members of this group?
I'll start. I think we should. I mean, that's kind of what we did with Dawn, right? You know, I met Dawn.
You're locked in
I
the
know.
room.
Yeah, she's great, you know, she would be good on this council, this is the work that she's advocating for, and we encourage her to apply, and then I will also
Just
say.
ask me.
No, I will also say though, you know, boards and commissions, when applicants come in, right, they don't know, we do have a better understanding of the candidates. I will say, when we had candidates come in for you know, Michelle's and the other folks who got nominated with Michelle, boards and commissions sent the resumes to us and asked us to apply on. So I reached out to some of the members who I thought knew folks and like, was okay, any red flags or whatnot, you know, should we say yes? Not like we have 100 people applying also, right? And we had, you know, enough people to kind of fill the seats. So I do think we should be involved somewhat in the process if we can. You know, Ron's secret plan is getting Michelle on because Ron's terming out, you know, in June, and
Not so secret.
right. So yeah, I think
The fact that boards and commissions ask the council to opine is not consistent.
Yeah, I don't know if that normally happens.
Because it didn't happen with me.
Yeah.
Not consistent.
Because your reputation precedes you.
And your, in this.
That could have been an hard no.
Yes, so this happened from last year.
Yeah, but we don't know yet how the current
Right.
governor intends to
Right.
operate the boards and commissions.
All right, so it's up to that person. Okay.
And I guess I will say, like, when we, at least when I was brought on, I had to do an interview with the lieutenant governor's staff. I don't know if they did that. Did you folks?
I had an interview with Senator Rakai.
Senator Gavin called.
You did call, okay, right after you were nominated though, right? Not as part of the
Yes.
application, I think.
I called, Ron suggested that I call, so I called, but I didn't get a call back.
Yeah, so at least I had to do an interview prior to. What's my application?
Wow, how come?
No, there were like a handful of names there. I think she was probably, I don't think it was them.
Look at about I'm teasing you. I just,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as.
Who?
Mary's into the best.
But on
What's that?
I came on at this. I did. I think I was a little after. My.
No. I'm sorry,
like,
come on,
she's,
ladies, it's quite clear. Jeff Fox begging for and you're a lawyer. There's a difference.
I think you can fit in a. Maybe.
Right, they were not sure about.
I'm sorry, I'm missing out on all this frivolity.
It's just a
I can't hear all of you, so
Oh, do you have some questions?
let me just add something to the conversation.
Robin's feeling left out.
And I'm sorry, it's real hard to hear what you're all saying, but let me add something to this conversation. We know that one member is going off and can't be reinstated, and that's Ron. We know we have a vacancy of someone who was appointed and never really served. So there's at least 2 positions that are open. We don't have full clarity, unless Onana, you do now, on.
I do now. Yeah.
You do?
Well, yeah, I just checked the website. I wanna confirm, actually. Gordon, Don, and Makaala, your terms end this year, according to our website.
Why would mine be the same as?
Yeah, and so that's why I wanna make sure.
That makes no
it's
sense.
accurate on the website.
I don't know.
Well, it just came on. What do you?
I know, but
You might build a.
it might have been.
I'm kidding.
But I do wanna confirm, and I'm gonna email Sharon right after this meeting, because if that's true, I had emailed boards and commissions earlier this month to ask what's the latest. I think we can still get names in this month, but we gotta do it quick. To get, if your terms are ending, because I think Don, you certainly can serve longer. Makaala, do you remember when you came on?
No, people keep asking me that.
You were on when I
After
came on,
Mexa.
I'm about to go to 8
So
I
years.
started with,
I came in.
you were one of the first people.
Oh, wait.
So if you're terming out, I think,
I do too.
okay,
I think I'm supposed to turn on. I think there's a mistake.
wait, okay.
You know, those
Or yours is 2024, because I can
The one
about
time-
this year.
I was on a temporary basis. And I was a voting member.
If it's 8 years, because I think
Yeah.
my term is
2015.
2024, I'm showing you as 2024 on the website.
Yeah, I think they forgot to count my time before I started.
I don't know they count together.
2026.
That's what the,
Allison doesn't.
also you mentioned that if you can serve without being approved by the Senate, which I think I was.
Roy completed the term and then.
I served a temporary term.
Term and then another term and then full term and then another partial term.
I think that's what's.
As long as it falls within the total.
The 8
Yeah,
years.
so I'm over 8, I'm gonna be over 8.
Well, because unless you're listed with 2024, you were terming out in 2024.
Yeah, but I think I'm supposed to term this year.
Well, the rule is probably.
Yeah, I gotta go do
And
that.
then see, what date is in the GM.
But Allison, I guess the question had been whether if somebody was there without Senate confirmation.
Yeah, so that's
they're
me,
hopefully
yeah.
there for a whole year, that still counts as a year, right?
Yes.
That's an confirmation for, oh, you mean because of partial term?
Well, because it's-
I was an interim appointment. I was appointed in November, and then I didn't get confirmed till following
Yeah.
session.
So I was
Yeah,
the same thing.
so how does that count?
I think it counts for years.
Yeah.
So part of a year?
Well, I mean, I can check, I'm not that familiar with this,
Well,
but
regardless, because we're only confirmed through a certain term, right? I mean, you gotta count the 8 years, but if you're only even if you were appointed in November, your term says June, just because it's not 8 years, like you're well, I guess you could go past only until November. as a
you will
whole,
pass
right?
in order, I know there's a time up they can hold over.
I think you hold, yeah, you can hold over until you hit your 8 years, though, right? You can't hold over longer than your 8 years.
I think you can hold over longer, it depends.
On what? I mean, we just need to know if it's coming or going.
For the next legislative session.
Okay.
Okay.
But if you're holdover for the next session, not eligible.
Yeah, I thought
That makes sense.
you can only hold over so long as you don't hit your 8 years.
There's a land use
No, there's a
decision
case on this, yeah.
on this. So that's it.
Yeah,
There's the rest of it.
thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, the rest of the holdover, I think, isn't it
I have another board that does pass the 8 years.
as holdovers?
Yes.
Okay.
But the
Yeah,
partial
doesn't
count,
that
like
call
what
into
did
question
you
as well,
do?
because it was about that land use case that they weren't a proper holdover. So for the-
Can I interject here for a minute?
Yes,
Please.
I think there's two issues here. One issue is clarifying who's going to go off. And
Yes.
I guess that's got to be clarified with either Scott and Les and Onana or somebody. But I don't want us to start talking about it and waste all this time. I think it's a factual thing that we just need to research. But
Yeah.
given that, regardless, we know that there are at least 2 positions that are going to be available. So my point is, we need to start contacting people to submit, because the last time we checked at boards and commissions, there were no applicants for the EAC.
Yeah, we did
that
check.
was as of 2 weeks ago. when I
Okay.
checked, yeah.
Thank you.
So regardless of how many vacancies we have, we need to look at getting additional people to, because the process is not a simple, you put in your name and you're going to be on. Obviously, you all know that. So, we can work out how we want to talk with people, but what I'm hearing is, regardless, we need to encourage people to apply. We were still
Well,
looking. Go ahead, Rob.
Robin, apropos of that, what did your data reveal
Well, the
of your
gaps.
survey?
The gaps that were clear, but again, 4 people didn't respond. So the gaps that were clear from this categories that were in the statute, media, these are gaps: media, construction, public health, architecture, and humanities.
Well, Gordon's construction.
Construction.
Yeah.
So,
Gordon never responded, so I
Okay, so we
assume
got
that was the
construction.
case.
Okay, but we know that about Gordon because that's what he does. So
Sorry, what was it? Media, humanities?
public health,
Let me read it again: media, construction, public health, architecture, and humanities. One category that I mistakenly eliminated, which we do have, is environmental consulting. Clearly, we have that. So,
And
3 of those suckers.
yeah, we also
Right.
wanted on our own to add somebody who's a native Hawaiian practitioner.
that's right.
Who's
That was-
comfortable identifying themselves.
and that's the other category that's not listed, but that we've always talked about having.
Well, it's fine. Well, even Mahina, there's a few of us who are Hawaiian, but we're not identifying ourselves as experts.
Or representing that.
That category, yeah. So I think that was, I believe Mahina.
So when you think about people, that's the value of looking at the gaps, is to think about people that might be A, representative of that constituency, but B, a great addition to our council. So. Okay, that's really what the Strategic Planning Committee update is. Please, encouraging you to contact people. Les, you said you sent out a note that it's now available, the link is available on our website. So when you talk to people and you send them to our website, note that they can begin their application process on the website.
And I think that's already on there. So that, yeah, thank you, Les, for updating.
It was Jen.
Oh, Jen, thanks to Les for updating.
And that's it. The only other thing from strategic planning is I'll try and follow up with some of the conversation that we had earlier and put that on our next agenda. that Steph so eloquently pointed out would be well heard in strategic planning. So I'll work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Any questions for Robin? All right, so lastly on our agenda, because we actually did discuss item 9, which was our member terms, are the updated policies and procedures, and I thank Robin for drafting some language. We have a new item A and our general policies that have to do with, recruitment and transition planning. So if you folks can kind of take a look at that language that was added, it starts on page 2, changes. And it's just kind of, things that we as a council should be doing to support, recruitment and transition of knowledge from existing members to future members of the council. That was the only real substantive changes to this policies document. At this point, it'll be updated again with the new IMO policies for the next meeting. And if anybody reviews this and they want anything else added to it, please get me your changes no later than March 28th. So we can get it on the agenda for the April 4th, which will be by force.
Yeah, I would ask you all to please read that transition. It came out of the strategic planning conversation. Onana did some wonderful editing on it, but all of you have experience in that, and think back to when you were first appointed and what would have made it better / easier / more productive for you. And please send that to me and I'll add it to this transition policy.
Not sure how to say to make it better, but I can say that it's been difficult with Sunshine to do stuff with Ron on exemptions outside of committee. So when we have our meetings, we've got the county and the state folks on the call. And it would be great just to sit with Ron and I proposed it and he's like, Sunshine, we can't do that. What are you looking?
Well, I think two members.
You and I can do things. Our committee.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, we tried to have this conversation and I felt like it was hard
It is hard
to do. So I am.
Oh, I think we have 5.
Then yeah, you should still be able
The two.
because it's not a quorum, right?
The members are fine, talked about anything.
Oh. Well, I think.
He was anxious.
That's paranoid.
Like he was tired.
He was
Well,
telling you
what
to,
we can do is discuss how we're gonna vote. You know,
Right.
and sometimes you get into that situation where it comes up to their incredible.
yeah, that's clear. I mean, we talked about a mentor, that's part of the recommendations, but you, as Allison verifies, and Scott, 2 people can talk about anything except the vote, how you're gonna vote. So you 2 guys, so don't let him put you off there, Michelle. Just and actually, if he's putting you off, make him buy you lunch in payment.
Right.
Thank
I'll
you.
put that in the policies.
Yes, and by
I like that.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Robin, and to everybody. Any other questions announced?
Yes. This isn't a going away or anything like that. It's just an appropriateness. It's Ron's potentially last in-person meeting. And this jumped off of a wall and said, I need to live at Onana's house.
Oh, at my house. Wait. For you?
No, it's for
you.
That's the last time we're all gonna,
Together like this.
14 musketeers and whatever.
Yes, you have to.
be.
You get it?
Here.
Yellow shine.
Do you see it, Robin?
No,
You
no,
gotta
I
bring
didn't.
it up to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is it?
Is it a real picture?
It's yellow tang and a turtle.
Ron, your last meeting's June.
Well, I won't be here in June, so I guess it's May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I usually, I think it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, we have it scheduled and that's. I don't know.
I think June is when the new person should
Really
be
cool.
here, right? But, we probably, I don't know. if we'll have-
Nice and lightweight.
Yeah, we do have to get work on getting some people. I feel like all the people we brought on have been great.
Oh, okay, I can see it. Thank you. Thank you, Les.
Gonna
I'm
do
sorry.
well. Already got 2 interviews.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, you gotta.
You and I know now you can talk about
Yeah.
different things.
Nothing, there's a relationship established for some of the departments.
You gotta get your white teeth downstairs.
That's the least of my worries. My worries right now is even my phone won't connect.
Um,
Let's do the.
Is there anything else?
Yeah,
I
just-
really adjourn.
I missed it, but I know last year, so.
Yeah.
Say again that how much it's been for that. Already, see, it's various iteration. I think we're bringing on a student helper. Right, and so one of the little projects now that I'm talking about doing is getting the student helper to sit down with a video camera with a very long battery and card and getting let the talk story and just try to download some of the great stories and insights and things that he's.
That would be great. That would be wonderful, Les.
Specific topics or.
Oh, I got one.
Just email
I
me.
mean, there's no agency in the state that's had a more colorful history of directors.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Here.
Yeah.
Meetings with lights going on.
Yes. Run into the FBI.
Not one that's just convicted on.
Episode 1. Yeah.
Right, Les?
Okay, well, if there's no other business, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It's 3:08 p.m. Thank you all very much. How much for this?
Especially through some certain months that the rest is not a.
Who's going to be that rich?
Yeah, I don't know right now. What about you? What's your plan?
It's like 5.
Mine's like 6:15.
Thanks, Robin.
So I'm like. You're gonna.
See, Robin.
And you. No, I just looked it up. And
Why?
I came back very